Hello Internet, welcome to Making Money. My name's Eric and this is your Daily Dollar, our financial segment where I give you one lesson every day to help you reach your financial goals. Happy International Women's Day, everybody. Today's lesson is something cool I learned about in a TED Talk, and I'm going to link it down below. Kristen Pressner, I believe it is, did a TED Talk about unconscious bias. And that's today's lesson. We're going to give a little trick related to that, but I thought it was topical, and we'll bring up exactly why in a moment. But let's get into the lesson. Unconscious bias. What is unconscious bias? So just as it sounds, a bias is, where we are predisposed to think one way. Whether it's true or not, our mind makes us believe that that is the case. And then unconscious, again, we do it without thinking it. So unconscious biases are tricky because we do there are snap judgments of people or situations, whatever the case may be. It is our primal brain, the center of our brain, our fast brain, if you will, that makes these split-second decisions based on history, based on our base knowledge, which is a idea that we talked about in the past and something that I believe in. And with this information, it was meant to get us out of danger and make sure that we're making the right choices quickly. But the right choices might not always be what come out. A great example of this is if you've ever heard, someone say, repeat after me, say folk. We're going to say folk 10 times. Folk, 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 folk. And then they ask you, what is the white of an egg called? If you said yolk, you're wrong. Yolk is not the white of an egg. This is our fast brain making those split decisions for us. We think it's right, but it's really not right. That's why we have our slow brain, our conscious brain, that helps us make more logical decisions. If we slow down, a lot of times we can make those decisions right. So our slow brain can help us change a bias. It can go, wait a minute, that's not how we should look at this, and help us correct it. But how can we identify when we have a bias? Sometimes this is really difficult because sometimes it's very slim little tiny things, Yeah, there can be huge biases where you believe one thing and someone believes the complete opposite, right? Very easy, very polarizing to see. But most biases that we deal with on a day-to-day basis are not those big situations. They're smaller, minute things that, you don't think about at the time, but they really are impactful. So how can we identify when we have a bias? Well, Kristen does a great talk on this, and again, I'll link it below. But the flip it rule that she uses is something I find that I absolutely love. And the idea of this is you take a situation with two types of people, and you lay out a normal situation or a situation in one way. We did an example the other day where my friend of mine said, all my Canadian friends love hockey and all of my Australian friends love rugby. And to us, that may sound normal. It depends if you're into sports or not. But if we flip that, and we take our Canadian friends and Australian friends, we flip them and we say, all our Canadian friends love rugby, all my Australian friends love hockey. That might come off as kind of sounding weird. And it's this sounding, it's sounding weird to us, strange to us. That is where you actually are uncovering your bias. In that situation, you may have a bias that you think all Canadians like hockey, or most Canadians, or some Canadians. And likewise, all or some or most Australians like rugby. Whether that's true or not. But that's what we're talking about. It's a bias. And that might be, more of a harmless bias. Depending on your situation, you might steadfast have strong feelings about sports. I don't, but that's not the point. Let's take another example, and one that's topical for today, for International Women's Day. Let's take the statistic A company may want to get up to 30% of their leaders to be women. They want more leaders, so they say, we're gonna set a goal. We want 30% of our leaders to be women. That sounds progressive. They wanna make more women leaders. That's great. But let's flip that. Let's flip that situation. Let's say the exact same thing in a different way. This is another way to flip a situation. Let's say we want 70% of our leaders to be men. That sounds weird. You may have thought that 30% sounded weird at the beginning. After we said it the new way, a few more of you probably have heard that it sounds a little odder. In reality, obviously, we want leadership not to be based on gender. It doesn't matter if you're a woman, a man, non-binary, whatever the situation is. If you're a good leader, and some people believe that all people can become good leaders, then leadership is great for you. We want, good leaders. Doesn't really matter who. But yeah, so this flip it idea is kind of cool. This is something that you can apply pretty much everywhere. Just take two different groups of people that you think you might have a bias, an unconscious bias, and then put those groups into certain situations and then flip them. Does it sound strange to you when you flip them? If it does, you might have an unconscious bias. And if you do, you are actively trying to identify it, which is a good thing. And if you have an unconscious bias, you might need to take more steps or take it slower so that your awoken brain can be more logical about decisions based on those groups. Because deep down, we know a lot of the biases that we have, they're not grounded in much. It's a quick decision that our brain makes, but it's not necessarily a true, outcome. So cool little trick. Hope everybody's having a great day. Hope this lesson is something that you enjoy as well. Try it out, see what you think. I really hope that you guys are enjoying this series. In general, I'm interested. How is your International Women's Day going? Who is a woman that you would like to spotlight today? Feel free to leave that in the comments below. Kristen is going to be my spotlight today because I really liked her TED Talk and I really like this method. You can always hit me up on Twitter, link in the description, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another lesson. See you guys.